Hi everyone, it's Sandy, and today I'm doing my very late November wrap-up. I wanted to film my November wrap-up last weekend, but that was the weekend before finals, and I've been studying all weekend for finals. And right now I'm in the middle of finals week, but I have 3 days of no finals until my very last final, which is on Saturday. So I have plenty of time to study for that final. So I'm not too worried about it at the moment. Maybe I should be. Whatever, I just really wanted to film my November wrap-up so I can get it uploaded for you guys to see all the books that I read in the month of November. So this month I read 7 books. One of them was an audiobook, and I think that's a really great number considering that November was a pretty stressful month. November was the month of exams, projects, and preparing for finals, but I'm almost done with finals, which means I'm almost done with my first semester of college. Kind of crazy how fast this semester has gone. But anyways, let's talk about the books that I read this month. The first book that I read this month is A Book of Spirits and Thieves by Morgan Rhodes. This is the first book in the spin-off series of Fallen Kingdom. This book takes place in the Fallen Kingdom world, but in a different time period and following different characters. I love the Fallen Kingdom series. It's one of my favorite fantasy series, so I had to read the spin-off series. So this book doesn't spoil anything in the Fallen Kingdom series, but it would be best to read the Fallen Kingdom series before you read this book because it's in the same world. In Fallen Kingdoms, the world is more developed in that series than in this series. This book switches time periods between modern day Toronto and ancient Mythica. One of the main plot points of this book is that one of the characters opens this book and she gets transported to the world of ancient Mythica. I thought that this was a really solid, good first book in a series. Since this book does follow 4 different characters, each of those characters have their own different stories, and I love how they all kind of connect with one another. As much as I love the Fallen Kingdom series, I also love how this book is pretty much its own story from Fallen Kingdoms. Yes, it takes place in the same world, but there are different characters and it's pretty much its own series. I love reading books that have different point of views, but sometimes there are point of views that I find kind of boring, or I prefer one point of view over another, and that is what happened in this book. There are like 1 or 2 point of views that I didn't like as much and would prefer reading from a different character, but overall I really enjoyed the story. Things got really intense at the end, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens in the next book, and I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. This book follows a girl who is basically allergic to everything. For a majority of her life, she has been trapped inside of her house. She's not allowed to leave, and there's just a lot of restrictions going on in her life. I did like this book, but I didn't love it as much as other people have. I flew through this book, and one of my favorite things about this book is that there are illustrations in it. Seeing those illustrations made the reading experience a lot more fun, in my opinion. I love it when a book has something like that, and for some reason I was able to predict like the big reveal in this book, and I usually am never able to do that. I really like the main character. I love that she loves to read and that she talks about the books that she reads. I also really like Ollie, who is the main love interest, but I didn't love the romance. It happened way too fast. I feel like they were better off as friends than as like a couple. I did like the ending of this book, but I wish there was more of a closure between the main character and another character in this book. Not going to go into much details. Overall, I give this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is Winter by Marissa Meyer. This is the 4th book in the Lunar Chronicles. Since it's the 4th book, I can't really talk much about it without spoiling it, but I loved it. I am going to miss the world and the characters and the stories so much. I started missing all the characters the second I read the last word, and it was just very emotional for me. There are so many feels in this book, so much action too. I love the way the story was wrapped up. It was amazing. As you can probably guess, I give this book a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I have actually filmed a book review on this book, so I will leave that down below if you want to check it out. A very short summary of this book is that the main character, Fallon, meets this guy named Ben. They spend like a day together, and by the end of the day, they make this agreement where they plan to meet on this day, which is November 9, every year for several years. That's all I'm going to say about this book because I highly suggest you go into it without knowing much about it. So since I filmed a book review, I'm not going to talk too much about this book, but this book definitely made me feel all the feels. I always read through Colleen Hoover's books really fast, and I finished this in less than a day. And there's a lot of bookish references in this book, which I really love. This isn't my favorite Colleen Hoover book, but I did really enjoy it. I ended up giving it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is Sweet Temptation by Wendy Higgins. This is the companion book in the Sweet trilogy. This book is basically a condensed version of the first 3 books, but in Kaiden's point of view. As much as I really enjoyed the Sweet trilogy, I did not like this book. I don't have anything against Kaiden. I really liked his character, but I did not enjoy this book. And I feel like one of the main reasons why I didn't enjoy this book was because I was just confused as to what was going on. This book was just really choppy. Things would happen and I'm just confused as to why it happened or how it happened. So you miss out a lot of details that you would only know if you were in Anna's head. Going into this book, I knew that there was going to be a lot of things that were left out, but I didn't like that. I don't know, I just feel like it's unnecessary to read from his point of view. There were definitely some scenes that I enjoyed reading in his point of view, but then when Kaiden talks about like something new, I was like, wait, when did that happen? How did that happen? Because I don't remember much details from the Sweet trilogy. So I feel like if you were to read this book, it would be best if you read it right after each book. So when you read the first book, which is Sweet Evil, then you would read Kaiden's point of view after that. Then once you read the second book, then you would continue on and so on. I've come to learn that I'm not a big fan of companion books. This doesn't change my feelings for Kaiden. I still really liked his character, but this book just wasn't for me. I ended up giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book is one that I listened to as an audiobook, and that was 10,000 Skies Above You by Claudia Gray. This is the second book in the Firebird trilogy. The Firebird trilogy has to do with alternative dimensions. I've never read something like that before. It's so interesting reading about it in this trilogy. When reading this book, it took me a while to get back into the world and the characters and the story. I didn't enjoy this book as much as the first. One of the main reasons was because a certain character was hardly in this book, and I just don't like that. I did love seeing the different dimensions in this book like I did with the previous book. The ending makes me really want to finish this trilogy, and overall I give this book a 3.5 to 4 stars. And the last book that I read is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This follows Simon and Baz, who were in Cass fanfiction in Fangirl. This is Rainbow Rowell's take on the story of Simon and Baz. There was so much hype surrounding this book, and I wasn't disappointed by the hype, but I also didn't love this book either. When I read Fangirl about 2 years ago, I didn't like the Simon Snow fanfiction. I hated it. It was my least favorite aspect of Fangirl. Going to this book, I was a little bit cautious about it, but I'm happy to say that I did really enjoy this book. Initial thoughts after finishing this book is that I want more Simon and Baz. Like, I just want them. I don't care if they're just eating or driving or whatever. I just want more of them because they're so cute. I freaking love Simon and Baz. I love the magic system in this book. This magic system is basically words are magic, so anything you can say can have magic in it. And I think that's so cool. It's so simple, yet so awesome. The beginning of this book really dragged for the first like 150 pages until Baz showed up. The second Baz showed up, the story got 10 times better. I really loved Baz's character. He is my favorite character in this book. I love the dialogue between Simon and Baz, and I just love them together. They're adorable, and I really want more of them. I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. That is it for my November wrap-up. If you read any of the books that I've mentioned, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Bye!